Welcome to Religiously Incorrect, episode 3.
Episode 3.
How are you all? This is Pastor Jeff, and we are with
Pastor Todd, and it is a pleasure to be here again. We made 3 episodes, man.
3 episodes,
Can
man.
you believe it?
I'm loving the feedback.
Are we syndicated yet? Are we syndicated? Like
all
we'll be on
over
UPN?
the world, Doc. I went down to China the other day. They was talking
We was
about
on it. I wanted them to bring back the WB. The WB. Remember that racist frog they used to have?
we are really like you.
What are you doing? Stop. Do it over again.
No.
You can't do Chinese caricatures, man. Jeff Stanford.
I'm sorry.
Apologize, man.
I'm sorry. And I used to work at a Chinese restaurant. So
What does that mean? Welcome to Religiously Incorrect. My name is Pastor Todd, and I don't even know who this guy is, but he'll be.
All right.
So what's
here
the
we
subject?
Go. Well, before we get to the subject, I just want to ask you a quick question.
Rapid fire.
If you could interview any star that's alive, or not
alive.
Star, any
Personality
that's alive, who would it be and why?
It had to be my man Barack Obama.
You just stole my answer, Doc.
Well, you should have had me ask you.
I guess I should have, but go ahead.
That's my dude, man. He's the coolest dude on the planet. He's still basically running the nation behind the scenes, keeping everything together. And just judging from going to the Michelle Obama thing that my wife and I went to, and she didn't even read the book, by the way. I just wasted my money on the book. She read like 1 chapter.
Way to tell on your wife on TV.
Listen,
okay, go ahead.
I bought it. But the behind the scenes stories and stuff were just amazing.
Absolutely.
From the presidency. And really, once president, always president. So they're still under that same guard, but they can talk more freely now. So I would just love to have that conversation. And he just seems so pragmatic and cool. Like he's not going to give you completely all political,
right,
or idealistic answers. Right. He's too pragmatic for most, which is probably part of his downfall. Some people didn't really care that he was willing to be practical and realistic about things. And I just think he's an intelligent person to talk to, privately. Absolutely. It would have to be a private interview conversation.
And that's what I really would. I asked my wife. told my wife that same thing. I told her I was going to ask you, and she said, "Who would you pick?" I said Barack Obama. And the reason I would pick him is because I would want to know what. And I mean, we saw some of it out front, but what were the racist undertones inside the White House?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
What did he really go through? What type of, things did he have to really deal with? So I thought that would be a great person.
You think they would really be like openly racist with him in there, or people like?
I don't think they care that he's the president.
They threw some ribs on the plate the first, some watermelon and chicken the first night. You think it was like that?
Well, we're gonna change this menu.
Well, right.
We know he doesn't want these scallops.
Doesn't want salmon. So your dude would have been Barack.
It would have been Barack.
Black people, we still love Barack, man. We
don't always love Barack. It don't matter.
You know what? Honestly, if some other better, reasonable candidate had come, we'd probably be like bashing him a lot more. Right. I think the Trump thing actually makes his legacy like stronger.
Exactly.
And
I don't.
It's like he ruined Bush.
Right.
Like he ruined Bush, and now. Now you good, man?
Yeah, I'm good.
You sure?
I'm good.
I got some holy oil on the desk if we need.
I don't even think it's because per se he was black. Obviously, we love him and we are proud that we had a black president.
Because he was black, man.
But no, he was just so cool.
This cat could have blew up Japan, and I still love him. I don't really care. But okay. No, he was cool. He was cool, cat, swag, smart.
Very intelligent,
a capable leader, not someone I agreed with all the time. Some vehement disagreements about some things that I have, but you can't deny the dude's swag, man.
Absolutely. Now, let me just pre-warn you. I do have a little bit of cold, so if I cough a little bit, please excuse me. I've had him lay hands on me, but it didn't work. So
I got no power.
I ain't got no power. He don't got no, I need to go back to the altar. Lay hands on yourself. Oh, okay.
I think my oil was defective. You got that Aldi's oil. I got that Aldi's oil.
That's probably some Crisco you got over there. Okay. So our topic today.
What's the topic,
Our topic
Jeff?
today is family matters.
That's not the topic.
It ain't.
It's Modern Family.
Modern Family. I knew it had family in it.
You living in the past, man. This is the man that peaked in '91.
Modern Family. All right.
That's the if this blog or this podcast was 20 years ago, it'd be Family Matters.
Right.
But now it's Modern Family.
Right. Well, I am a little older than you, just a little bit. Just a little bit. All right,
Modern Family. And for reference, for anybody who lives under a rock, Modern Family is supposed to be a show about modern families.
Right.
You got an older gentleman, old Al Bundy, I forget his real name, Ed O'Neill.
Ed O'Neill, yeah.
And he's married to the young Hispanic lady. Then you have the homosexual couple.
Exactly.
Then you have the so-called traditional family,
right.
In the middle of it. And by the way, can we just say at the beginning, this is not going to be about the homosexual thing.
Right.
We're really going to talk about the mixture of families, and it's not to say we have any opinions about that today. It's just not the topic.
Absolutely.
So what are we going to be hitting on tonight?
Today, first of all, over this first half an hour, we really want to deal with stepchildren, stepchildren, or with I guess the politically correct word would be blended families.
Is that what they call it now?
Blended families. I've heard people say I've got the bonus mom and the bonus dad.
Yeah.
Or the bonus kids.
You seen that one picture with all the soccer moms and the dads on both sides, and it's like I'm the stepdad and they have like all on the back, and they're with the kid in the middle. And so like the mom has another man and he's extra, and the dad has another woman and I'm like, that's too much, to be honest. I couldn't do all that now. That's
I mean, it's and I think that's a great leeway because I think it's great for a picture.
Yeah, I ain't taking no photos.
I think it looks, and people are going to look at the picture and they're going to say that's beautiful. But is it a reality? Now, so let's just start this off because we don't have what we would per se, and obviously this is religiously incorrect. So we don't have that model biblically to go.
Now I was going to ask you about that. Are you sure?
Well, let's talk about it.
Let's go to the big one.
Okay.
All right. Is Joseph the daddy or the stepdaddy?
Wow. He would definitely be the stepdad.
Because that's how we play that. We play that, God, the Holy Spirit and Joseph is just there. Right. He's, So is he the dad or the stepdad? What's up with that? Wow. Was he the stepdad we've been overlooking all this time? He took Jesus in. He taught him a trade, made him a builder and a carpenter.
And he had to deal with his wife being pregnant by somebody else.
Bruh.
Wow.
And he was getting ready to, take her to, with Judge Hatchett? Is that her name?
Somebody judge somebody.
That the divorce court judge? Or was it Maybelline?
Well, everybody wanted him to take her.
Right. Exactly. So the theologians can comment later.
Right. They're going to.
But it's become like the preaching joke and point people make, like God is on my daddy's side, and on my mama's side and all that kind of stuff. So we don't have many though.
We really don't. And I think for me, before you just brought that up, which I mean I really didn't think about it, but before you brought that up, I would guess the greatest stepfather would be God Himself, because we understand that we are born into sin.
Okay.
That we have to be adopted into Christ, and that God becomes the greatest stepfather. Matter of fact, He says we become joint heirs with Christ after being adopted. So if God does that and God loves us that much, what happens in the breakdown of this
what if
system?
God is the real daddy and our dads are the stepdads? Because He knew us first. Just blew all y'all minds. I just blew all y'all minds. No weed needed. I needed no marijuana to come up with that.
I am sorry, y'all. It's one of those days.
Listen. Okay.
Pastor Johnson is on fire. It's one of those days.
All right. So it's difficult. Now, for full disclosure, you are a stepfather.
Yes, I am.
I am not a stepfather, but I do come from a blended family.
Okay.
So let's talk our experiences, man. Tell us about some of the challenges, and then we'll talk on the other end about what the church, how we can respond as pastors. But let's talk on the front end about the challenges and the dynamics of that.
Well, let me start off by first saying I am a stepfather, but before I was a stepfather, I was a stepson.
Okay.
So growing up in a family where I didn't meet my real father till I was I'm pretty sure I was in the 8th grade. So I grew up with a father who was in the house, and I actually called him Dad, but I only called him Dad once a week because we all, even his real sons, called him John. So we all called him by his first name. So it wasn't, but that's the only daddy I knew.
Okay.
But even though he was the only daddy I knew he wasn't my daddy.
Gotcha.
And
when did you realize that? When do you think you knew that?
I think they made it, in no disrespect towards him, but I think he made it absolutely clear.
Okay.
I think for me, I felt like favoritism was showed towards my brothers. It wasn't showed towards me. I think love was given to my brothers. It wasn't given towards me. So in turn, it made me say, if I ever get in this position, it's going to be different.
Okay.
Now, and we're going to get to that in a little while.
Right.
Because, it didn't actually turn out, that way or as good as I thought it would have. But I would say that that's probably one of the hardest things. And somebody wrote in on the questionnaire we had today is, how when you try to love somebody who doesn't love you back, when you try to love a father and you want that same love and that same care that they give all the other kids, and you don't feel like that they have it for you. In fact, I felt like the only time that the love was given to me was because I was a sports star. So on the football field,
you getting the attention.
That's my son. But when we get home,
it's like Shaq's daddy.
Right.
He wanted to come around.
Right. When we get home, it's like
Sorry, Shaq's dad.
It's like it's when you get home, it's like, all right, you clean the kitchen, the living room, the dining room, the bedroom, this and that. Everybody else, we about to have fun.
Right. Now, was it really like that for you? You was like Cinderella. You was
really
up in there scrubbing with the mice and stuff, and
it really
they
was.
Down there going to the ball.
For me, it made me a better person because it made me, you look at it and you say, I can't believe I had to go through this, but I learned a work ethic.
Okay.
I really learned the work ethic. And so I always was able to keep a job. I always knew how to, clean, whatever it was. And we grew up, I didn't have a whole lot, but what we had, I had to keep clean.
Absolutely.
So it was very difficult for me to be a stepchild because you know what I mean? When the family is around and people are taking pictures and you just don't feel like that same,
you're not fully a part, that full connection. And the child doesn't understand. And even as you get into the 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old, you can operate in that reality, but there's still just this longing to be fully and completely connected.
Absolutely.
That's what a child wants. They don't understand all these dynamics. They don't know about court. They don't know about, all this other stuff. They already know it's a lie where real daddy went and all this other kind of stuff.
Right.
So that's real. How about the siblings? Like, what was that dynamic like with the other siblings?
Well, honestly, the siblings were great. I didn't have any problems with them, outside of the fact that, I kind of resented them for them having a daddy and I don't. You know what I'm saying? And so I think the real pain came in when I did meet my stepfather, when I did, a real father.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking, my real father is going to, step up.
Right.
And when he didn't, now I felt double rejected.
Okay.
You felt like.
Would have been better if you'd never.
Right. It probably
at least at that age.
Yeah, at that age. So, just fast forward, I grow up and, now you get to the point where you start hanging out and you start, growing a little hair on your chest. You know what I mean? So, and that's one thing that I think every family, especially stepchild, step parent, has to go through is that one stage. And I remember that night I came home and he's like, well, it's way past your curfew. Where you been? And I was like, you ain't my daddy.
Oh, you pulled that out.
And I mean, it was quick. It was real quick because I was like, you ain't my dad.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I still got these hands though.
Right. So, it was quick. I was on the ground within like 3.5 seconds.
Wow.
But you know what I mean?
He got you.
Oh, he got me. Because my stepfather was a big dude.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, so how do you, it's very, and I think, and then growing up, and I got married to my wife who already had a child. And so, I felt like, this is about to be a whole different dynamics.
Right.
And
you're going to right the wrongs.
Yeah, I'm going to right the wrongs. I'm going to make it right. I'm going to make sure I love her just as much as, she loves me, and so I think in that situation, her father was in the picture.
Okay.
Her father came and got her every other day and every other weekend, and they were, best of friends. So I didn't know how to jump in. I didn't know, how far to go and how much can I be daddy when her daddy's really in the picture.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it became another challenge. And then, she grew up and, I never asserted myself as daddy, but then I needed to be daddy, but I couldn't assert myself as daddy before, because I had too long.
You've been tight-roping all this time.
So it got to the point when I tried to assert myself, here comes the you ain't my dad.
Oh, man.
And I've been there since you was 2 years old. I've bought your clothes. I've took you school shopping. I've done this. I've done that. I've been there. I've been there with you. How dare you say I ain't your? And I know I'm not your biological father, but how dare you tell me when everything you got is because of me?
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And so, but the pain of that. So I just feel like if we're going to do it, and when these people come to us for marriage counseling, because it's common. It's a common thing now.
It's the common thing.
It's very seldom. You're going to be very lucky to meet a woman who doesn't have kids or a man who doesn't have kids to sit down and say this is how this is going to work out.
Well, when you talk about the modern family dynamic, what you just described, it's become more the norm than the traditional nuclear Leave It to Beaver family that we all, and honestly, it's not like we don't know it hasn't been this way for a long time.
Absolutely.
I don't know why the stigma has just kind of persevered over years. This is not a 2000s, 90s, 80s even. This is really like 50s, 60s, 70s. Now, I guess the balance and the ratio was more balanced.
Right.
And the stigma socially and, Christian norms and all that kind of stuff. But whether it's step families, blended families, mixed marriages, second marriages, all those things, they're the norm now.
Absolutely.
And what we're looking at as a community, as a people, it's not just, those are the Johnsons.
Right.
Those are the Johnsons. Everybody's got the same last name. Everybody.
Right.
You're going to have different last names. I've joked about how, don't take this the wrong way, but I've joked about how it kind of upends a lot of our traditional things that are built around the family. Case in point, funerals and weddings and different things like that. You got two fathers walking somebody down the aisle. You don't know who should be in the front seat at a funeral.
Right.
You might not know who all the kids are or see names you never recognized when the time comes and it's time to write an obituary and you're like, who is Bobby? Oh, Bobby's from the first marriage. Right. And again, it's not a stigma on the person at all. That was but it just creates kind of an upending of the norms. It causes us to be more cautious. I've learned in my church context where I really don't know who's related to who. You gotta be careful how you talk to folk. You don't know whose brother or cousin or sister or stepmama you talking to. It could be that simple.
It is.
So but it's become, this is literally, in the modern family is the common family. It is the common family.
And then I learned that, you don't want to leave somebody out in that, when I got installed at Beulah, when they had to make the flyers, one person's last name is different than the other kid's last name.
Right.
So what we're going to do is we're going to use her last name and we're going to use their middle names.
Gotcha.
So you got Christian Cole, Asia May, Chastity Yvonne, and then Stanford,
on the tail end of it.
On the tail end, so that nobody feels left out. Because those just something as small as that make them feel left out.
Now, I come from a blended family, and oddly enough, both sides of the family is with different sets of Johnsons.
Wow. That made it.
Yeah. So as odd as it sounds, it's not a funky thing. But they were literally totally different sets of Johnsons, and that was from a marriage thing on my mom's side, and then on my dad's side. But so we're all technically, most of us at least. There's two brothers that don't share the name, but we all have names on both sides, so it's not as confusing. But that creates a dynamic for us that we have to consider and be cognizant of in everything we do. And it's just like, gender equality and changing the pronouns, and how, we used to always say he when you talk about, now you gotta say person. You gotta be more careful. We all need to do that in ministry as community leaders. When we're preaching and teaching, we can't just go back to the defaults. And the crazy thing is, now my little family, my wife, we're the classic nuclear family. We're the sore thumb that sticks out. We're the different. That's just not as common. We're not special. We're not better. We're just happen to be on that track. And if you look around at school, if you look around in the church, there aren't that many of you at our age. There just aren't. And the days of feeling superior, thank God, are over. The days of feeling that sense of superiority, and maybe that's a grace for the step families and the blended families and the second marriage families of this generation, is that the stigma has faded in a lot of ways. The stigma has faded in a lot of ways, because let's just be honest, man, people could just pretty much count on being talked about in church, in the community, whispers in school, when it is, school assembly time or graduation time or wedding time or whatever, that Israel kid, And the older folks, like I said, it's not a new problem. Quiet as it's kept. They hid some stuff.
A lot of stuff.
That ended up being damaging down the line. And when a young guy like me comes along, I'm bearing all these old folk and finding out that, 100-year-old person really got, and I used to say it in my sermons, and I still say it a lot, please tell the truth to these young folk. That they're not the first ones to have a baby out of wedlock, or they're not the first ones to get married, more than once. They're not the first ones that some man had to come and pick up the slack on somebody else's, abandonment or whatever, because they need to know that this didn't just start yesterday, and that's just with the step side. Now, I come from a blended family. My mother came into the marriage with 2 children. My father came into the marriage with 3 children. Tony and I came along between them. Then we adopted my little sister. Okay. So our friends and family called us the Black Brady Bunch. We were the Black Bradys. And we really were. And I remember slight tensions, the you're not my mom stuff. My older sister not getting along with my mom. And no shade, I know this is kind of personal, but I'm just telling the story the best I know it. There were times when my older sister would call the house and be like, where's my dad at?
Yes.
Where's my
I know that.
Where's my dad at? And, you're a kid, man. I'm the youngest. So I'm the second youngest. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll get your dad. And you know what? In your smart little immature mind, you're like, but he's my dad for real. Can we be honest? Right. And then you have the life of who gets to live with the parent.
Right.
We had the weekend family. We go pick up, and they're with us for the weekend or a few weeks in the summer. But we got him all the time, 24/7. Right. We got him without the stigma of having been the product of a divorce. We got him without, that's not my real dad. So the 2 younger ones, the 2 younger boys in our family, we were kind of like on the clean, the dust has settled, all the lives have come together, everybody got saved, everybody's doing right, and now we come along and we have these 2 older factions on both sides that both live through chaos. Right. And honestly, they're looking at us some kind of way.
Right. Absolutely.
Looking at us some kind of love. We used to say we don't have half brothers, we're real brothers. But I know what he was looking like. I didn't get to drive a car like that when I was in high school. Yep. Sound like they favoring the young ones. And sometimes it's just a natural product of people growing, maturing, and now they're able to do better for the younger ones. And sometimes there's nothing you can do about the fact that when you were in your early 20s, you ain't have it together for your first one. But now you got a kid in your 30s and you know what to do and you're trying your best. So that's a tension that I witnessed. I can't say I saw anybody fight each other on the sibling side over that. I don't think we had one of those we don't get along things. I was probably too young if I saw it. But we did see some of the parents, the children from the other parent not always meshing with the step parent, and that's a trial.
Even I can specifically recall my daughter, my eldest daughter, who I had from a previous marriage. You know, we took her out to Ponderosa, and we were all sitting there, and she's just now getting to know my current wife, and she was young. She doesn't even remember this, when we bring the story up. But this literally caused my wife to step back. We were sitting there, and my wife was, I don't know what we was talking about. My wife was saying she didn't like somebody. I can't remember who it was, and it wasn't nobody, that we knew. But and my daughter looked and said, "Well, I don't like you that much."
Whoa.
My daughter probably 10 years old at this time, 10, maybe 11 years old. She's 26 now, y'all. So, she's grown and they have a great relationship now. But, it was
and your wife picked you up and slided across the buffet?
No, it was done. Wasn't no more food eating. Wasn't nobody hungry no more.
Did y'all get some ice milk before y'all left, though?
The potatoes, the butter melted on the potato. Didn't nobody want.
She said, I don't like you that much.
I don't like you that. And I at that particular moment, I grabbed her up, and I went and I had to talk with her, and and she cried. And it wasn't that she didn't like her. She didn't like the fact that me and her mother weren't together anymore.
Right.
And now the thing that her and her mother done, her and
this new woman
is doing.
Right.
And she doesn't understand why. And those talks are very difficult, but those talks are necessary.
And honestly, let's just be honest. These are the talks in the black culture and in our church culture we avoid.
Absolutely.
We kick the can down the road. We punt. We defer. We just want things to work out. And oftentimes as parents, especially, I think the adults just expect the kids and everybody else to just accept it. It is what it is. In old school, shut your mouth. This your daddy. Call him Mr. John or da-da-da-da. Right. And keep, you know what I mean? And that is damaging to people emotionally and spiritually, on top of the fact, which we'll get into in a minute, that they're coming to church and hearing these constant sermons about God's plan for the family. Right. The family is a man and a woman and a baby, and marriage is one time, and you're supposed to have, and that kid, we've all heard that stuff. And the child is like, I'm a bastard child. I'm a sin child. I'm a demon child. I'm all this stuff. I'm the result. They up there crying on the altar because they had me. Right. You know what I mean? That's literally what they doing. What kind of demon are y'all casting out tonight? You, Betsy. So we have to be more open. And these plays and Tyler Perry movies and stuff talk about all these family secrets and stuff. It's not always the family secrets. It's not always the scandal. It's not always abuse. It's not always molestation. Those are things we definitely have to address. Definitely. But just the dynamics of the feelings and the transitions and the heart issues that occur from these
broken families. And it's broken.
Are they broken? How will people be offended to hear the word? Because that's a word that we have kind of started to push to the side. We don't like to call them broken. Is it just a function of our broken humanity? It just, yeah.
Well, I was the reason I say, I can recall, obviously, like I said, when my wife's daughter and our daughter, I still call her our daughter.
You said your wife's daughter first, though. So
but when I said she would go with her dad every other week, every other day, every other weekend. Her dad ended up getting married.
Okay.
And they end up having a kid. So now it becomes less and less time.
Yeah.
And so now you're looking at this dad that you love so much raising another kid with another family.
Right.
So now you begin to become clingy to our family. Right. But now me and my wife have a baby. And so now you feel like, and I can feel her, the wilderness that, I'm not the loved kid anymore.
And it's just a child. This is not, this is not something you can sort of reason out in the way that an adult would. And sometimes we just don't have the grace. And there's a lot of people who have had issues into adulthood. And again, I'm not talking about scandal and molestation and all that kind of stuff. Just the fact that you maybe felt like you were invisible for a season of time.
Yes.
You felt like you were being neglected. We talk about just babies in general. If you have one child and he grows out of the baby phase, and then you have another child that's a baby, that older child can turn into a baby again because they see the newborn getting all the attention. So think about what you just said about two families. Building their own families, and this child is stuck in the middle. And by the way, they're both two good Christian families. They're not out there wild. It's not a whole bunch of insanity. But even in the best, and here's where Christians need to be honest about it. Even in the best of situations, you can love Jesus, love the Lord, filled with the Holy Ghost. Fact of the matter is that child is sitting in the pew in the church, reading the Bible, Sunday school, still knowing in their heart that something's not right. There's still a void. They still feel in the middle of an uncontrollable situation in their eyes. They're like a ping pong ball.
Absolutely.
And sometimes what we do in the church, and we'll get to it in a minute on the second half, is what we do in the church too often is we cover it up because there's goodness here. So we're not like those people out there. So they're broken and we're healed. But that child is like, I'm not. Y'all happy, got your rings, and you done figured this out. But I'm not.
I'm not happy.
And so I think that's, again, where we have to have open, honest conversations that taking advantage of the fact that the stigma is lifted a little bit. But just because the stigma is lifted does not mean we're actually dealing with the issues under the hood. And to me, I'm like, if you have a chance, because the social and the sort of the judgmental, weight has started to lift because of society, you definitely should take advantage of the opportunity to be open and honest. So blended families, and we talked mostly about the step families. We'll talk a little bit more about adoptive families, mixed race families. What was the other one that we missed from blended families? Is that pretty much?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And we'll hit that up. But I appreciate you for sharing your story, man. I really do appreciate the transparency.
And I wanted to say, just because I didn't get it right does not mean it doesn't need to be talked about. And I'm not saying I was a horrible stepfather. I just felt like I could have done better. And I think, I would love to talk to other people who are going through some things like this. And
like
I think
a supporter group.
And I think
Stepdad's Anonymous.
Ding, 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 ding.
That's it.
That is the end of our first half. We'll be right back.
Appreciate it. Welcome back to Religiously Incorrect. This is Pastor Todd.
I'm Pastor Jeff.
And this is the second half of episode 3 of Modern Family. But first, got to get a little sports talk in. The bombshell announcement of the week has been Indianapolis Colts quarterback Andrew Luck retiring in the middle of a game. in the middle of a game, like he took his helmet off.
Just done.
He was like, bye.
I don't even want to get paid for
got in his car and just drove. And the dude got like $25 million. They're gonna pay him like most of his money. But what do you feel? 29 years old, and we talked about injuries, pain, this, that, and the other. What does that strike you as? Is that empowering? Someone taking control of their destiny? Is it disappointing to all those fantasy football fans out there?
Definitely disappointing for the fans. But I think we have to be realistic for them. And I think, we as fans who, one thing I hate is commentators. Those who sit up in the stands. Right.
Except for us.
Those who stood up there, never played the sport, never played the game, but gonna tell you how you should do and what you shouldn't do and how you should act and how you shouldn't act on the field. The whole Stephen A. Smith type thing. You know what I mean?
He's an aggravating figure all around.
The other day I watched I was just flipping through Facebook and it said something about why Barry Sanders really retired.
Okay.
And I never had, phenomenal records. This cat had more records than I ever even knew he had.
But the team was garbage, though.
And that's why they said he retired. He said he didn't want to bash them, but he said all these records I'm getting, all this I'm doing, and we're not winning.
Right. And I feel like the man took control of his own destiny. He was obviously getting beat up a lot. They had no O-line for years.
Right.
And whether it's NBA, or football, MLB. I'm not so sure. I'm not huge following the transactions, but I don't mind seeing guys take control of their own destiny, in spite of what the commentators or the fans say. Because at the end of the day, it's their body, it's their money. Come on, we've seen what football is doing to people.
Absolutely.
This guy's not going to remember, his kids' names if he plays too long. And we've seen some of these injuries that knock some of these greats out. And, you made your millions, man. We've always said how much is enough is enough. Obviously, a few guys are thinking that way.
Absolutely.
And saying, enough is enough.
You're able to sign those big contracts, and if you do right with your money, I was watching same show where they was talking about Michael Jordan. Right. And, I thought it was stupid. I thought it was ridiculous for him to go and play for that second team he played for. But I didn't know. I mean, he had literally like 3 45-point games in a row for that team, for the Wizards. You know, and I'm like, I didn't know he was that good, because everybody always talked about how garbage he was when he came back, but he wasn't garbage until he got hurt. Right. After he got hurt, obviously, you start going downhill.
Downhill. But, whether it's that and your Lakers, man, they just signed everybody. Who else they going to sign? The Monstars?
Man, listen.
They got Dwight Howard?
Right. And, I mean, Shaq and Kobe just got together, and they just roasted him. They just
They roasted each other. Right. The Lakers are like a TV reality show now. Was that what Braun was going for?
Right, I'm a huge Lakers fan, and I never, obviously, once again, commentator. Right. But I never wanted LeBron over there. It's just, you ruining Kobe's legacy for me.
That's what you think he's doing?
Yeah, you ruining it. Yeah, I think he ruined his own. To me, Mike had already submitted his legacy when he went to the Wizards. Right. For me, LeBron still had work to do. Okay. For me, he still had work to do, and he I don't think he's ever going to get to where.
And he's turned this whole thing into a bit of a. He tried to trade the whole team last year. Right. He was like trading fans away. Right. He's like, look, y'all can have Jack Nicholson.
Listen, and when Magic quits. Yeah. Magic quits,
turn the lights out.
Yeah, it's over.
Turn the lights out.
Over because Magic don't give up on nothing. No, he'd buy 20,000 McDonald's and Burger Kings and
Magic
make
Johnson
it work.
Theaters.
Oh my God!
All right, so we'll dive back into the more serious part. We can't promise we'll be serious the whole time, but here's the second half. We talked about mostly step families, blended families, right? But in general, modern families can be any distinguishers that are sort of outside of that old school norm. So that can include adoptive and foster families. Mm-hmm. That can include mixed race families, which are very common. And as a caveat, that's very common, and people are still struggling with that.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I struggle with it.
You still struggle?
I don't struggle with it as far as...
You're a racist.
No, I'm just being... Can I be honest? Can I be honest? Man. I don't have a problem, for me. I do not have a problem. I never have had a problem when I see a black man and a white woman married, going together, whatever. But when I see a black woman with a white man, I have their Jefferson. I'm like, are you serious? And it always be these.
Does it matter how they look?
Tom Brady looking, sandals. In khaki shorts looking. I'm like, dude,
they swag.
We got a 720 credit score, and I'm like,
swag it. They probably do. They probably do. And I'm not hating either. Don't nobody want to be,
And his name is Biff.
His name is Biff. Big Mike has jumped into the conversation. His name is Biff. But okay, and you know what? We've talked about this. Race will come into a lot of our conversations.
Absolutely.
Prejudices still exist.
It does.
Okay, racism still exists. We're gonna pull Big Mike. He's gonna be the quiet commentator over there in the corner. Who are the biggest opposers of mixed race marriages?
Oh man.
Who are the biggest? Who would you say are the populations that tend to oppose it the most?
And in my experience. Older white men, and black women.
Black women.
Older white man hate it.
You could be right. Oh yeah, they're still back with what was that dude, Strom Thurmond and George Wallace? Segregation now and forever.
So you're dating that colored guy. I see you're dating that colored guy.
You tell Jamal. You tell Jamal.
What does he do? Play football?
And the black women are not, they kind of have your opinion, man, about, the opposite side flipped. They just hate to see, the black. And then they always claim that, the black men are with some dirty, or not so great Caucasian female.
And why they feel like they do a little more, and a lot of them feel like,
they're submissive.
They're submissive, they're submissive. And
that's...
People
have cultural differences and they approach life differently. If you come from a different context, that's a part of it. And that's kind of a part of this whole conversation is that the blended of families, whether it's race, whether it's your adopted or step, now you have not just a blending of family, you have a blending of culture, you have a blending of background, you have a blending of expectations and norms that you bring with you. And so I think people are being really raw when they say some of these things of why they think it is. But honestly, they're sort of speaking some truths, but that doesn't mean they're negative. It doesn't mean that it has to be, so if a person comes from a background, black women, they be all color purple. All my life I had to fight, all this stuff. And then they're mad that Becky is easygoing.
Right.
And not, didn't have to climb the rough side of the mountain.
Right.
So she brings that into the relationship. And these are all terrible stereotypes and caricatures, by the way. So please don't write me letters or emails. We're just being, very stupid about the conversation and the language here. But I'm just saying, so those are just cultural differences. You can't be mad at Becky. We always talk Becky with the good hair and all this stuff. Right. That she comes from a different context and she didn't have to fight all her life and who told Harper to beat me and all this other stuff. And we carry that out of our culture, and if some don't, then they don't. Right. So a part of that is maybe spiritually us helping to understand that's just a part of life. You have to stop. And to me, I think stop going for the easy answer, the easy stereotype, the easy criticism that makes you feel better about why you didn't get chosen or the one you liked is on the other side.
Why couldn't it just be that they made them feel better? Why couldn't it be that, this is just the person that they simply fell in love with?
I just want to be happy.
It's just, you make me
happy. You make me whole. You take the pain away. I'm so in love with you. I'm tired of that song
because everything about you is okay.
I told him, I said, I don't even say Jesus. I'm one of the old school people. Where's Jesus at in this song? Okay, anyway, So
I watched a comedy special the other day, and a black girl said she got married to a white man, and she said, her cousins were the ministers, and the ministers came in, and and they began to talk to her. Listen, you guys are special. You guys are different. Things are going to be different in your house, and you guys have to learn to deal with each other. He said, well, what's going to happen? And if we get in an argument, am I going to come home and, one of the bathrooms going to say white people bathroom?
No. The whites only sing?
But I mean,
that'd be funny.
Thing is.
Does that happen, Mike?
No, man, that don't happen.
Okay, are you sure?
I'm positive.
You don't have like a blacks only garage or something like that?
Okay. No. It's all love in my household.
Okay.
To be honest, though, is there like a seasoning salt, y'all gotta put seasoning, hot pepper and paprika.
No, come on now. My wife's Italian now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
She can cook.
That's almost black.
Cook.
That's
exactly.
Some lasagna get up in there.
This is religiously incorrect, so we're gonna stay on the incorrect side right now. So here's where we don't want to take up all the time. Here we go. How can we now? We talked about the stepfather. We know mixed race is still out there. I have an adopted little sister. We've known some people with foster families and all. Right. How can the church? We posed this question online, and I'm going to read some of the comments. We posed this question online. How can the church and pastors better minister to the modern family? Now, I'll tell you what my sweet teacher, Miss Melanie, said on my page. She said one simple phrase. She said, just basic acceptance goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Just basic baseline acceptance. And on that, Eddie, a gentleman by the name of Eddie, commented on the page and said, I would say by not judging. And when we mentioned, step families, mixed race couples, and second marriages, that's what we meant, second marriages, adoptive and foster families, he said they're all families. So all three situations are families, regardless of race, step parent, or whatever. And that got a lot of love. And I think that's the baseline. Number one is, as we mentioned on the first half, removing the stigma and not looking for the you're special.
Right.
moment, or ooh, that's exotic. I mean, just these comments we make. And we have to temper our own, because we all get sucked. And sometimes I feel like, as African Americans especially, and white people probably get on their side too, you feel so just attacked and tense by the world you're in. You still need some stuff to cling to. So you see one of these things going on, and it's something easy to kind of snap at.
But what was the first you said?
Acceptance can go a long way. Yeah.
Basic acceptance.
Acceptance can go a long way.
Now, because we are talking about how do we as ministers, pastors, accept that. So I pastor predominantly black churches. So, and I'm pretty. I think you have at least one mixed couple come here.
Couple.
A couple. Okay. I mean, I believe that they feel very accepted. But it's still, it sticks out.
It sticks out, but I think the acceptance part is literally like ignoring it.
Absolutely, there it is.
I mean, and you know what? Again, this goes back to the beginning. It's common, and it's no. I mean, if this was 1955, we'd be like, what? Stop the organ. Organ be like, now whether you're attending a white evangelical church and even traditional, predominantly black churches, it's just normal to see some mixture in your churches when it comes to race. It is normal to see multiple, if not majority, step families, in your congregation. It is absolutely normal to see second marriages, and you don't even find it out till later on when you get to know people. Oh yeah, we got married later in life. This is his son. That's my, that kind of stuff. So thankfully it is a norm. So now just ignoring it, not making something out of it. And maybe that's us, because sometimes we can be a little sloppy and a little clumsy because you're trying to make some endearing, comment, and it ends up coming off as offensive or whatever. And have you ever had an experience like that? People kind of made more out of your relationship, Big Mike, than you wished?
Yeah. I mean, you do have some people that just try too hard.
Yeah,
that's
it.
Dude,
that's it.
We get it.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
We know what we look like.
Right. It's all good.
While you in a conversation, let me ask you one other question, and You guys have been married for quite a while. How long married?
Oh man, you would ask me that. What, 14 years?
14.
15
okay,
years?
Right here, man. 14.
Right.
You about there too?
15, I think.
Yeah. Sweet.
Okay. So my question is, because you have kids, mixed kids. How is there a challenge with mixed kids? Because and let's just be, because most people, and I'm talking about myself, every mixed kid I see just looks like a little light-skinned child. They just look a little light-skinned, a little real pretty light-skinned child.
It's the one drop rule, man. It's the one drop rule. That's a lot of drop right there. So
you know what? It's crazy, because early on they did have an identity crisis. I don't want to say crisis, but identity problem. The black girls thought they acted white.
Wow.
The white girls thought they acted black. So they were in the middle where they didn't know which side they were on. You know what I mean? They weren't. I think they were accepted, but because of things that happen and bullies, how kids are, they just say stuff, man. And I think it got to them more than it actually should.
Right.
But I did talk to them, of course. Like, look, the world's gonna see you as black.
Absolutely.
I don't care how straight your hair is, how pretty your eyes are, how light your skin is. They're going to look at you as black. So get used to it.
And I think black people are just as bad, and I don't know why we got to get back on tracks in a minute, but as acting like the world is being lost to mixed people. We act like ain't nobody black no more. You know what I mean? Like everybody's mixed. But that's just become, again, ignoring it. And thankfully we can. Thankfully this world in most cases different. Now if you go in other places or you run into some ignorance, you're going to encounter it. As churches, we need to be the ones who truly have that. And as Mike said, not trying too hard. I have never had to make a comment about anybody and anybody's race, in service. Look at how white people come to our church. Isn't that great? I can often talk about how more don't come, but I've never had to comment on who comes.
So you never made fun of them for clapping on 1 and 3?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. No, I do not. I don't. Right. I could, because I'm be real. there's a whole lot of us that's off too.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
You
You're
know,
right.
You know, a whole lot of us be off too. You know, I'm like, just stop the shout, just stop the praise break. They ain't clapping on beat. So anyway, another comment that was really good. Someone said, Alicia said, I feel before entering into a blended family, all parties should receive good counsel and be brutally honest about the dynamics.
There it is.
And that's a good thing. And you know what? Whether it's if it's counseling and it's on the front end and you get a chance to, you know, catch them in the engaged stage where somebody else talked about being engaged, whether it's a step family, whether it's a second marriage, whether it's a mixed race family, that is something you have to implement right into the curriculum. You can't look past it. You can't say, well, that's your pillow talk. That's for you all to deal with. No, you have to go through the dynamics, deal with reality, deal with your own prejudices.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think as a minister, the more I talk about it and wrestle with it and hear from others, and I've had to be checked about my, you know, prejudices, or you just say flipping things and like, nah, you know, and it makes you a better minister. It makes you a better person. If you actually address, like we said at the beginning, you can't just overlook this stuff. You have to talk about the children. You've seen the age-old debate on Facebook. I love when people ask, you know, hey, ladies, who eats first? Your kids or your man? Okay? That's a blended family question, number one, most of the time, because it's already insinuating that your man just may not be the father. You know, and it's always written like that, your man or your kids. Now, me, the preacher, may be like, well, if it's your husband, this is a different conversation. That's old school preacher in me. But those are dynamics, and social norms are changing. And so, for instance, blended family. Young lady has some children, is bringing a man into her life, and he's going to play that father figure. You know, the stories we're seeing in the news, I don't care how saved I think somebody is. We were taught, man is the head of the house. He's da-da-da-da. How does that work in a blended family when this woman has been caring for and protecting these children for 5, 10 years or whatever? She's been and now she has hopefully gotten to know this person well enough. We know we never really know.
Right.
We really don't ever really know. And now you're saying, okay, now he's the head now. He's the head of all, and now you gotta tell the kids, hey, he's the head of all y'all now, because Bible says so. That don't line up with the reality. I'm not saying it ain't biblically correct. I'm saying it doesn't line up with the realities that people live in. They're like, even if the wives or the mothers would be like, hold up. That's where more of a partnership dynamic comes in. That's more of the reality that those children will never quite trust the guy as much. And then there's that protectionism side as well of you might need to let this play out for a while to see if they're really capable in the marriage setting of actually doing this.
It's gonna take a lot in that setting, in so many different settings. I think, you know, for one, you as if you're getting into a blended marriage, when you're talking black and white, first of all, you need to tell, as the black, let's say a black guy and a white lady, as the black guy, you need to tell the white lady, you know, about cousin Malcolm X.
Right.
He's gonna be at the family functions.
Yeah, he's gonna show up.
And he's gonna say everything he can to irritate her.
Like, what's up, Taylor Swift?
and then why Sister Becky need to tell the brother
about Jimbo.
Yeah, about the brother who gonna pull up with the, you know, Confederate flag on his car.
Yes, on the pickup truck.
And you know he gonna feel uncomfortable. And I mean, just to be real serious, if this white lady already has kids by a white man, and you're coming in as the stepfather,
you're just
and you know you're walking, and it's happened. I was just watching a 60 Minutes thing on it the other day where a white baby or a black babysitter was walking the white kids, and they called the cops.
They called the cops on them.
Yeah,
and you know what? The funny thing is, you will have those dynamics. You'll have Jimbo. You'll have Malcolm X dude. But a lot of times, the family doesn't have a problem.
Right.
It's everywhere else they go.
Yes.
And I've seen some very happy-go-lucky situations where everybody just, and you know, it's funny because sometimes they just treat it like they're like Martin Luther King's dream. You know what I mean? They're like, this is the dream. Everybody's all so excited. They're like, we won. And but then you go to Walmart. Then you go to Cedar Point. You know, then, you know, police or some stupid citizen thinks that a black man is really kidnapping some kids sitting in Chuck E. Cheese eating some pizza, at a restaurant. And that's, and it's the rest of the world that has the problem. You know what phrase, since we're talking about color a little bit, we don't see color. We're colorblind.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, let's not do that. Let's not do that because, again, I don't care. And sometimes we simplify the conversations too much. Black, white. Mike just said Italian.
Right.
Greek.
Definitely.
You have people who are Asian, mixed Indian, Hawaiian, Native American, all those things. So it's a clash of cultures. So when color has connotations to culture.
Absolutely.
So when you start saying colorblind, you start saying culture blind.
Come on.
You start saying culture agnostic in a way to where, but sooner or later, our culture is going to be our culture no matter what it is. And again, that's not always race culture. It could be background culture. It could be coming out of the culture of a different family expectation. And so that's something that we have to minister to freely. And yeah, we don't have some scripture to say, but maybe we do. Remember how Aaron and Miriam felt about Moses marrying the sister?
Yes.
I'm saying, and God was like, yo, struck him down for a quick second. We can't be shy about mentioning how God really feels about how people are to treat each other regardless of their situations,
right,
and regardless of how they are brought into a circumstance. Because honestly, and as pastors, this might be unpopular to say, but once people start to get into, especially if we're talking marriage is an honorable thing. I want you to make it. You came together.
Right. Absolutely.
I don't care if you came white, black. I don't care if you came after you already had some kids with somebody else or you were divorced. This here is an honorable thing. So now we're here to minister to this thing and not drag whatever all these other details are into this thing to try to make it dishonorable.
Right.
So let me move on to one more, and you can kind of ruminate on this. This is a compliment from one of our sisters, and I appreciate you, Sister Michelle, another former teacher, one of our members. She said, Pastor Todd, you're already doing so well. Thank you. She says, I'm mixed but married to a black man, but both of us feel completely comfortable at Second Baptist. What drew us? The warmth of Sunday school teachers, the friendliness of other members, and an approachable pastor. Thank you. I try. Who made us feel at home. So what I get out of this, and you can speak on this, is that at the base of all of this, it's just basic humanity and love and kindness, and none of these other,
right?
Because we're all bringing something to the table anyway. So how do you feel the church, the pastors, the ministers, what can we do better just in a general sense that would sort of cover a great deal of these sort of auxiliary concerns?
It's simple. Love. It really is. We have to have common courtesy, regardless of, like you said, race, whatever race,
right,
gender, common courtesy, and showing the love of Christ. You're still my sister,
right?
Regardless of what color, you're still my brother, regardless of what color, and not trying too hard to make people fit in, but just letting them fit in where they get in.
And you know what? With that, we have to do a better job of actually getting to know people.
Absolutely.
So that we would understand where they're coming from. For instance, I have to be more attentive. I'm terrible with names, for instance. I'm rotten. I will forget your name in a second for the first few weeks, first few months. Like, hey, sis, God bless you, brother. Don't. They stop all at the door. Like, what's my name? I'm like, where's my members list? But the reality is, a family that's a blended family is probably going to have different last names. It's on me to figure that out.
Right.
Take the time.
Take the time.
Ask privately, maybe. And
absolutely.
I do. I'll be like, hey, Miss J, my secretary, is such and they have the same last name. I might as well ask privately before I get up there and say, oh, Sister Jackson's son, Jamal Jackson. His last name ain't Jackson.
Right.
I should have taken the time. And again, that's through the simple Christian fellowship that we ought to have. Now, I used to get aggravated, in the white-black sense. People say, well, just be kind to each other. If we would all just be kind to each other. And I know, and I would get on my soapbox about systemic injustices and criminal justice system and all that. But at the end of the day, on a base level, person to person, that really is what it is.
It is.
That really is what it is.
And I would also suggest, honestly, we've talked about this, but I would suggest, when we doing these marriage counseling, especially whether it's step kids, whether it's blended kids, when we're doing these marriage counseling, bring these kids in.
Yeah.
Let's talk to the kids.
Yeah.
Let's see how the kids really feel, because this may end up being your divorce. You guys could have a great relationship as husband and wife
until 10-year-old says in Ponderosa, I don't like you all that much.
Right?
The chicken goes flying. You lived it. You know it.
And it's very difficult. So we have to speak to these kids. We have to see where their heart is, and then we have to make the necessary adjustments that need to be made.
With the few minutes that we have left, we've talked so much about counseling, and that's been suggested quite a bit. And I agree with that. But I would also say that we don't have to wait, and we don't have to condense it all down to marriage counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Small groups, fellowships, family nights, can play a big part in that. And you have to open up the door and be intentional about letting people know that they're really welcome. This is not just for the perfect families or who you perceive, or they themselves may not perceive themselves to be worthy. And we forget unworthiness is an incredible stronghold.
Wow.
It's an incredible stronghold that will keep people at home, that will keep people from not showing up to the church picnic or the potluck or the game night. And you have to be intentional without saying, hey, even though you're, a single mother, or you're adopted or whatever, you should come too. But we just have to be intentional with the kindness and the friendliness so that we break down those barriers. I think that's what Sister Michelle was trying to say, that we exercise that extra kindness without trying too hard. And to that end, I think it's just on us to make sure we push that, not just to the pastor.
Yeah.
But to everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
Because we are let's be honest. Now, before we go, we might go over time a little bit. What do you do, Pastor Jeff, when you have that member who gets out of pocket with their opinion or their prejudice? Or, that ain't your daddy, right? Or who she thinks she is getting married again? Or, I don't like seeing a black man with a white one. What do you do when those opinions about the modern family?
Well, for me, seriously, that's not your job. It's not your responsibility. You can have your opinion, but keep it to yourself.
Keep it to yourself.
Seriously, that's not showing the love of God. It's causing more division. It's causing more strife. And you can say what you want to say and run off at the mouth. These people got to go home and live together. These people got to talk about it. These people got to deal with this issue that you so blatantly jumped off at the mouth said. So, and I think us as pastors, as leaders, have to be more bold.
Yes.
In checking people, because we'll lose a whole family.
Yeah.
Over one person's opinion.
And we got to stop acting like it don't happen in black churches.
Absolutely.
Because it happens a whole lot. I saw a white pastor, I forget his name. Somebody put a video up, and he was just talking about racism plainly, talking about what he expected out of his church. And, we are not going to do this. We are not going to do that. I don't want any parts. If you think that way, I don't even want you in this church. And I was like, wow. Usually I'm kind of like, whatever, But I appreciated the Holy Ghost boldness he had. And we have to be cautious. Absolutely. Because in our context, we have people who are prejudiced too. We have people saying nasty stuff in the parking lot too. It gets back. And because she's been Sister So-and-so, over the Cupcake Committee for 30 years, we don't want to say nothing. But and we got to get off of that. Well, that's just crazy old so-and-so. Right. Or that, mother got them old views. Nah, mother needs to repent. Absolutely. Just like anybody else does.
Absolutely.
And it just goes to show, it's funny. You still got stuff to work on. You might be 80, but you need to work on an 80-year-old prejudice. Mm-hmm. You need to work on an 80-year-old opinion about that blended family. That woman found a second husband. They got married. God bless them. What are you talking about?
Absolutely.
So I would like to see that more on our end. And I preached a sermon a while back, a series called The Blended Bunch, where we just sort of talked about that this is the reality. What does God say about it? How do we approach it as believers? And how should you feel if you're in that circumstance? And the end game to that was, you are God's creation. You are called together however you came together, because I know that from experience. We do have a wonderful blended family, so to speak. And the funny thing is, whatever grown folk or lifetime struggles you have as siblings, or you would have had them anyway.
Absolutely.
You would have had them if you was all the same. You know, my dad had 12 brothers and sisters, 13 kids out of one couple. They all got their little differences and whatnot. I got this big Brady Bunch thing going on, and we have all these, different
Absolutely.
issues and differences. So that, again, equalizes that it's really not different.
Some of us are with the same race and blended financially.
Yep.
Culturally,
Come from different families and
come from
expectations.
We want to thank Big Mike for jumping in. Big Mike. Let me ask you one quick question before we go, Mike. Do you buy Stay Soft Roll or Spritz?
Do I do what?
Stay Soft.
Stay Soft or Spritz.
Come on, bro. I'm bald. I don't buy neither one of them.
Vidal Sassoon. Paul Mitchell.
I'm bald.
He said I'm bald. I buy razors. Listen, to all of our families out
Dollar
there,
Shave Club.
my dad used to always say this: family is the first institution God ever created.
That's exactly.
And families come in all shapes and sizes. As I said at the top, we have not talked about, other lifestyles and all, but within the context of blended families, mixed race families, second marriage families, adoptive and foster families. Eddie said it best. Shout out to Councilman Eddie Colbert. And he is in a mixed race family.
Yes.
They are all families. And I believe God smiles on them. And the goal is God wants families to be saved.
Absolutely.
And to be whole and to be healthy. And that's what's most important.
Absolutely.
So we hope we didn't offend you too much. This has been Religiously Incorrect with Pastor Jeff. I'm Pastor Todd. Would you subscribe to our YouTube channel?
Please.
Follow us on Spotify, iHeart Radio. Follow our page on Facebook.
Twitter. All that. Come
Everything.
on. Make comments. We need you. We need your opinions. We need
Talk
your
about him.
thoughts.
Talk about him.
Talk about Todd doing the crazy stuff at the beginning he done. All his members don't like him as much as that one person said. Trust me, they be calling me. They don't like this food.
Don't tell them. Hey, we love y'all. We look forward to seeing y'all next time. God bless you.
Bless you.